Oh, hello. I'm just trying to see the best place. All my posters up behind me as well.
Look at all your posters. I love it. Well, welcome, Keith. It's so great to see you.
Oh, it's lovely to see you. You're looking gorgeous as always.
Oh, thank you. I put some lipstick on for you.
I should have put some on as well.
No, you look lovely. Well, before we get into chatting, and I can't wait to get into it, I have a little introduction for you. So here we go. I chose Ethel Merman for you because there is no business like show business. And my guest is celebrating 40 years in show business this year. He is a well-loved entertainer from Wales who is the host of Milward's musicals on the radio and also on stage with Keith Milward on Radio Cardiff. Keith is an actor, a radio host, a director, a singer, a teacher, and he has raised thousands of pounds for charity. He's performed as Dame in pantos, and wonderful roles like the devilish Max Bialystock in The Producers, to Sweeney Todd and Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. He also won a NODA for Best Supporting Acting in Wales and Ireland. He's a member of the Black Mountain Chorus and has toured every state in America, bar 2, and even recorded with another Dame, Dame Shirley Bassey. Add off to that. After being a guest on Keith's show last month, I am delighted to welcome him to Bluebell Talks today. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the wonderful Keith Milward.
Well, thank you very much for that introduction, and thank you very much for letting me be part of this wonderful recordings and interviews. It's just tremendous. It's lovely, and we're just across the pond.
I know, you're in Wales, so for those that are listening in from America, listen to this beautiful Welsh accent. Oh, and happy Daffodil Day.
Well, it's our St. David's Day on the 1st of March.
Yes.
So these daffodils are for you.
Oh, thank you. And I will share them with my mum because they are my mum who's listening. Those are her favourite flowers, daffodils.
Oh, they are beautiful, aren't they? You know, the trumpet of the daffodils, so beautifully, perfectly formed.
They're beautiful. Oh, Keith, you're such a beautiful, bright light, and I know you are loved so much in Wales. You have a huge following on your radio, and your love of musicals is bar none. Your Milward's musicals on Facebook, as I was saying to everyone earlier on, is so fabulous for people to go and check out. When did this love of musicals start for you?
Well, I don't know. I think we have to go right the way back to my childhood. I used to be in, we used to call them operettas, but they were like little pantomime stories or like fairy tale stories. And I belonged to a chapel in Dunivant in Swansea. This is actually the house that we moved into when I was two and 2 days old. And we celebrated 60 years in this house last year. So there's not many people that stay in the house for 60 years, but I was 2 when I arrived here. But the local chapel would put on these fairy tale adventures, operetta, but pantomime, and my very first part, I was an elf in Snow White, and I haven't grown much. So perhaps I could still go in the costume. I don't know, but I used to love the operettas, the pantomimes, and the other children. You know, when it came to an end, they'd carry on with everything else that they were doing. But I'd be really so sad when the curtain would finish on the Saturday night, and I think I'd have to go through a whole year before we did another pantomime. And I think, oh, surely. And when I was a little boy, I'd go to the pantomimes in Swansea Grand Theatre, and I've seen every pantomime since 1964, every one of them. And but even if it was the Grand Theatre, which is our provincial theatre, or if it was just the village hall, I'd be sitting there as a boy and thinking, oh, what's behind that curtain? What's behind that curtain? Where are they going to take me today? you know. And of course, when the curtain
Storytelling.
opened, I couldn't wait to see the actors, to hear them, what the story was. But I'd be taking in everything. I'd be taking in what the furniture were on the stage, what ornaments were there, if it was a play. And then if it was a musical, well, I'd take it all in. And we have pantomimes. You don't have pantomime as we do here. It's very much an annual event. And they are the big pantomimes in the main theatres of a city. And yet we can have small pantomimes like in a village hall. But when I used to go to the main pantomime in the Grand Theatre, first of all, I used to go on a trip. My father used to work in a factory, and as a treat at Christmas, they would get the children to have a bus, and we could all go to the pantomime. I remember having the ice creams and watching this pantomime. But what I used to do then, I used to come home, and I used to recreate the pantomimes on a small puppet theatre. And I'd bought in a fete and gala at a local children's home, hospice. I bought this little book, and the back of the book was a proscenium arch.
Well,
and
that's the front of the theatre, for those that don't know it. That's the front.
Yes, the frame of the theatre, really. And it still had 3 scenes of the pantomime Cinderella. Now, by the time I was 14, I'd recreated all the pantomimes I'd seen in the Grand Theatre, but I was starting to put lighting in. And I had, with these little stick characters, I had over 300 stick characters, and I was putting these shows together. So when I've been directing as an adult, I sometimes think, well, the stick characters don't give me half as many troubles as the adult. But of course,
these actors, I don't know.
but of course, from seeing those pantomimes, I then went to university, and I studied, and I became a teacher and a careers advisor, careers guidance counsellor. But all alongside that, I'd be watching plays, taking it all in. And then when I finished university, I was back in Swansea, and I thought, let's join Swansea Amateurs. Now, at the time, Swansea Amateurs, it was so difficult to get into. Everybody was trying to get in. But being a chap, I think I was, it was easier for the men because there's so many. But it was the end of a real golden age. And the very first show I did with Swansea Amateurs, your best friend was in it, one of your best friends.
Yes,
Catherine Zeta-Jones. And I joined. I was understudying, but I played the part of Chula Longhorn. He's the eldest son in the royal household.
Of the King and I. This is the musical
of The King and I. The King and I. And Catherine, at the age of 11, was playing the part of Princess Ying Yaolak. And her lines, I can still see her now. I see the beautiful woman she is now, but I also see her as the little girl, and she was there. Please, Mrs. Anna, do not leave us. We are in great need of you. And I can hear her, and I can see her as that 11-year-old girl. And I remember, because she was in a pantomime, she was playing Cinderella in a pantomime. And I went to see this particular pantomime. It was in the YMCA in Swansea. And when she was there, I was looking at her and thought, this girl is going to go far. But I was thinking West End. I wasn't thinking Hollywood, but Hollywood. And she was with you with 42nd Street. And that's when I would have seen you first, Charlie, because at that time, when I started being in shows, I then wanted to try and go to see shows in London or in Cardiff, Wales, a capital city, but of course the Mecca is always the London West End.
Yeah.
And I was, I suppose, quite selective what I saw. First of all, I think, let's choose something that I like, and 42nd Street would definitely be there, and wow. But I remember being selective, and then in 1985, I went to a matinee, the first matinee of this show I didn't know anything about. It was called Les Miserables.
Oh, that show.
So I went in. It was the third performance, but it was the first matinee, and it was very long. It was about 4.5 hours long in those days, and I remember two things standing out. I was enjoying it, but when Patti LuPone came forward and sang "I Dreamed a Dream," I thought that journey from Swansea to London is worth it just to hear that song. And then the other thing that stood out that afternoon, it was all wonderful, but the other thing that stood out was Con Wilkinson singing "Bring Him Home." And I've heard the story since, that when they were in rehearsal for Les Miserables, "Bring Him Home" hadn't been written. And then Bluebell Schoenberg then wrote the song during the rehearsal process, and then Colin Wilkinson came in and sang the song, and Michael Ball, I think it was, said it. He said, "Well, I knew this show was about God, but I didn't think God was going to be in the show." But what happened then? Of course, it wasn't accepted particularly well by the critics. And when I was reading the write-ups, I was thinking, oh, it could close. And it could have been that I'd missed on seeing these things. So since then, I sort of just cracked, and I've gone to see as many London shows. And about 15 years ago now, I thought, oh, let's have a look at my programs. See, I keep all the programs. I've got you as lovely Patsy in Crazy for You, but then you as Polly in Crazy for You. Wow! But I thought, let's see how many programs I've got, and I got to 500. I got 500 London shows, and my 500th London show was The Woman in White with Michael Crawford. And just after seeing the show, I went round to the stage door, and he came out, and I thought, I said, this is my 500th London show, and how special to have your autograph, just after I've seen I think I've seen 1,000 now. It must be something like that, because I've kept going. I've gone even more mad.
You kept going throughout the years of
kept
seeing all the
kept
shows.
going. But not only London, it's Birmingham, it's Bristol, it's everywhere. Because there's so much wonderful work being going on,
Have you popped into the pond? Have you gone to Broadway?
Oh, yes, I have. I was visiting relatives in Toronto, and I took my mum and I took my brother, and we flew. They hadn't flown before. The very first flight was to Toronto from Wales. And but I said, well, now I'm so close, I must get down to New York too. So we flew down, my brother and I thought at that time we're going back to 1991. And it was just starting to change, but I'd heard such stories about New York at the time. I thought I should have somebody with me. Now, my brother isn't into theatre. He's made props for me. He's a carpenter. He's wonderful. I can't knock a nail in a piece of wood. I can't. But thank God for my brother. But he comes to see productions that I'm in. If he's made something, he comes to see what they look like on stage. Doesn't come to see me. So
of course he comes to see his work. But then I also love, we'll come back to Bro, I also love that when you do your shows, your mum makes the teas for the rehearsals, and then she goes to the box office. I love that.
fancy you knowing that. Oh, my blessed mum, and I've lost her now. So
I'm
sadly, she
sorry.
passed 10 years ago.
I'm
Yes, but
sorry.
she did. She used to make all those teas. You'd be doing the
Yeah.
teas. She'd be selling